Last night, the committee of 4 men and 1 football-obsessed dog reconvened for another week of chaos after spending far too many nights forcing ourselves to watch international football, praying, longing for the Premier League's return. We did what any rational group of football minds would do. We got into not one, not two, but about 17 separate debates about if Bukayo Saka is England's best player. Tempers flared, snacks were spilled, the dog nearly stormed out, and yet through it all, we toiled and burned the midnight oil to bring to you the only rankings that truly matter in world football. So without further ado, it's time for Anton'S Tears. Hello everybody and welcome along back to Hotsport for Anton'S Tears. I know it's been a couple of weeks because of the international break, but a bit of a business to attend to beforehand. If you have noticed, my feed, my videos have included collaboration from the Football Terrace. Those are some of my many appearances on the terrace, which obviously is a partnership that is being done between me and many, along with Terry Floor. So for those who don't know by now, I'm a regular on the terrace. So yeah, my career extends as a YouTube pundit. I don't know how the Welsh way to put it. You know, there's more of me around the internet, and we've just been able to be able to use TFT Extra to be able to compile some of the best clips of me on the terrace. So while there hasn't been any videos, and generally during the week we don't do videos, it's generally on the weekends as we get ready for the games. You know, we can just, if you don't have enough Anton in your life, you can just fill it up with some of the best clips from TFT Extra. And by the way, make sure you're liking, make sure you're subscribing to Hotsport, of course. This community is growing. It's definitely growing. It's definitely getting a lot more noticeable, a lot more popular. Some of the best people in the business are starting to, tune into Hotsport, and so I'm very incredibly humbled for that as I grow this platform. And another platform I would like to keep up growing. As you notice, we've got a little bit new features on this, on my artwork or my background here. Fire Them Cannons, my Arsenal podcast that I do with Cal. What you can do here is hit that QR code to subscribe. It will bring you to the page of Fire Them Cannons. You can subscribe there. Yeah, we do, anywhere between 1 hour, 2 hour podcasts on the Arsenal. Sometimes we bring in some rival fans to argue some of the upcoming games. So it's, we also got some more segments that we've got in the pipeline for that as well. So it's another big project. So if you want to, support me as well here on Hotsport, Fire Them Cannons is the way to go. But of course, we are here for the tears. So let's get into it. It's now time for Anton'S Tears. Well, shall we begin then? Right off the bat, bottom row. Here we go. Missing Nuno. Now, of course, it's the same bottom row as last time for all of you loyal followers of the Tears. So I'm just kind of come up with some very creative names for these tiers. And I say Missing Nuno because obviously Nuno, now we're talking years ago, former manager of Wolves, and actually thought that Wolves were their best when they had Nuno Espirito Santo as manager. And Nottingham Forest were their best when they had Nuno Espirito Santo as the manager. And yeah, it's just crazy the life that Nottingham Forest is living now since Ange, and we've spoke about this last week, and the stats continue to pile up. Or 2 weeks ago we spoke about this. Still yet to win a game with Ange Postecoglou as manager. It's actually getting bad, and in fact it's getting so bad to the point that people are now starting to talk about Ange already being sacked, Ange out, and there are rumors about Sean Dyche joining Forest. So yeah, Forest, I mean, think about it. They've had the average opponent rank of 18, so the third from bottom, third easiest schedule in the league, and yet they've only amassed a total of 5 points and 5 goals with a -7 goal difference. that with having a top 10 group in talent. It's been a very, very quick decline for Nottingham Forest under Ange Postecoglou. And look, it might just get worse. We have to see. This is going to be a critical week here for Forest to turn it around, really, for Ange to turn it around, really. They have got, who do they have this week? The early kickoff, they've got Chelsea at home. Now, Chelsea is a team that also is, going to need to compile a winning run coming up here. Of course, they've had that really good victory the other week. We're not here to talk about Chelsea, but they're hosting Chelsea. And unfortunately, it's not an easy matchup for Forest. But Ange needs to do something, and something quick, because this might be one of the quickest spells as a manager in Premier League history. As for Wolves, I think they've been consistently the worst side in the Prem. I really do think, again, they've compiled 2 draws so far and 5 defeats through 7 games. That is the worst record of any team in the league. Again, tied with Forest for the least amount of goals in the Premier League thus far. And yeah, the goal difference, again, close to worst, second worst in the league with -9. So this is a Wolf team that has been consistently, in here and has been playing with relegation form. There's no other way to put it. So both of these two teams are teams that have been consistent in the league recently and now are under serious threat for being dragged into a relegation race. In fact, they're the leading candidates at the moment for me, of course, according to these tiers. Up next, slipping. Now, for some of these teams, it's like they've been battling in pretty well in this league. Like Burnley have been playing above expectation for me so far this season, but recently they're starting to fall back into that range of where I believe they would be, starting to look like that relegation team, that worst talented team in the Premier League. So, for instance, last week, they lost to Villa. Then the week before that, of course, they lost to City. So, they're starting to just look, losing games. They're starting to look more like the team I expected them to be, rather than the dogged fighters that they have been going on to the season. Fulham was a team that, I had much higher up the tiers, even at the last edition. But of course, that didn't take into consideration that Bournemouth game. So of course, after a really impressive victory against Brentford, 3-1, then they've lost 3-1, 2 weeks running, both away from home, we should point out. So they lost to Villa 3-1, and they lost to Bournemouth 3-1. And yeah, they're starting to feel this kind of slip down the table. Now again, things don't get any easier as the mighty Arsenal come to Craven Cottage. And again, Leeds, similar story. So they've been a team that's been pretty solid in the league. And I still think overall they have been. But again, lost to Tottenham at home. They're just starting to kind of, again, look more like a newly promoted side. Because I think they've really been up and down throughout this year. So let's see how it kind of looks like this week. But I just kind of feel like Leeds is slipping down the table. And then, of course, there's West Ham. And West Ham have been slipping the whole season. And yeah, I think it's going to get better now with Nuno. Again, the early tests with Nuno weren't easy. They had Everton, they had to go to the Emirates, of course. So yeah, at the moment, they're well below what their talent dictates they should be. They've got Brentford coming this week. That's going to be an interesting game because I think Brentford has been on somewhat decent form recently. And yeah, look, they easily could have beaten City last week, but we'll get to Brentford in a second. But yeah, overall, that's sort of the second bottom from tier. I call it slipping. Up next, closer to reality. So again, a similar theme. Villa on for different reasons than some of these other ones. Villa should be comfortably a top 8 side in the Premier League. And they had a shocking start to the season. No goals for the first 4 weeks. They hadn't registered wins until a few weeks ago. And so all of a sudden they're starting to get a few wins on the bounce here, and they're starting to beat teams that they should be beating. and they are creating some consistency that is more recognizable for Aston Villa, if I were to say. Sunderland on the reversed. So, like, all of a sudden last week, Sunderland were top 10, I think they still are top 10 in the league, but again, they were showing some really solid mid-table form. Again, go to Old Trafford, and all of a sudden, everyone was expecting United again to just continue the bad form, and then they really ran over Sunderland. Sunderland looked more like, again, one of those promotion sides last week against Man United, who's been struggling the whole year. And then you got Brentford. Brentford, when I say closer to reality, it's more like closer to what they're used to being. I still have doubts about Brentford's talent, but, against the two Manchester sides, romped Manchester United. And then last week, City had an early goal from Haaland. But again, Brentford had many opportunities to be able to go and win that game. And they had that one-on-one opportunity. It was a great save by Donnarumma, which really kind of saved City from the points. So Brentford is starting to just trying to play that regular role in the Premier League to this point. So yeah, these teams are all closer to reality. Up next, signs of life. Manchester United. They're looking like, again, I think that was their best performance of the season against Sunderland. I thought they carried a goal threat throughout the game. Benjamin Sesko, really good goal by Benjamin Sesko in that game. Great goal by Mason Mount. And I think United started to look offensively, at least what their fans were hoping them to look like. Like, it wasn't a scrapey victory over Sunderland. It was like, they got the job done, professional performance, but that's what big clubs should be doing at home. So it would look a lot more like, for instance, Arsenal West Ham was happening side by side with Manchester United against Sunderland, and Man United were 2-0 up before Arsenal could even before Rice even scored the opener for Arsenal. So they took control of this game early. They also had many other chances as well. It wasn't like it was just the two goals. Like they were really piling on the chances. They had so many shots on goal that could have been, that were so close, and it was a much better performance. It was a lot more lively performance. That's why I said signs of life. This is, I think, a different type of victory to the one, let's say, they had against Chelsea. I think this one was a lot cleaner. And look, let's test to see if that life is really there. It's taken the pressure off Amram for me for a little bit. But again, I think they have an opportunity here, by the way, this weekend against Liverpool to sort of play a little bit freer, to play a little bit like, I know people are going to find this a bit insulting, but like it's a free hit. So the pressure is all on Liverpool this weekend, not so much on Manchester United, which I think could work in their favor. But again, going to Anfield against a desperate Liverpool team, regardless of what happens this week, I don't think I'm going to really take it out on Manchester United overall. I think this is a bit of a free swing. Next up, starting to take shape. So, again, I want to start with Newcastle on this starting to take shape here. So, again, that was a very convincing performance against Forest. They're starting to roll here. Of course, they brought Arsenal all the way to the brink, and then the next week they looked like at home, like themselves. Now, they have got Brighton, another team on this tier. And for Brighton and Hove Albion, again, their season is sort of it's taking shape to be Brighton. Very consistent. They can get some really good results against some of the top teams, which they have had this year. Chelsea, City, Spurs. But then they drew against Wolves. And okay, this is a bit Brighton-y. They will make it life hell for some of the big boys, but then drop their guard and kind of lower their level and struggle to beat some of those bottom teams. And it's a bit more like Brighton. I feel like Brighton enjoy being sort of the underdogs. they're like a mid-table version of the big boys in terms of when they play, let's say, a Wolves, they can dominate the ball and they have to play against low blocks, and I feel like it doesn't suit them as well. So, but again, their season is starting to look like Brighton, where they were fighting at the top, but now it's like, okay, we played some of those teams that we should be beating and we're not quite doing it. So, and then there's Everton. And Everton started to drop a little bit in their form of recent weeks than last week, as I predicted, by the way, on this network. They went ahead and they beat Crystal Palace, a Crystal Palace team that was playing amazing football this season. That had won 18 in a row. It's gone 18 games unbeaten, and they ended that run. So, again, they've got Man City this weekend. That's going to be a tough game. But yeah, I think Everton, again, are right back in the mid-table. Their season is really you're starting to see kind of what Everton is going to be, what Brighton is going to be. And I think you're starting to look a lot more at what Newcastle is going to be. Next up on the tiers, Eurovision. That's right. You know Eurovision, the singing contest? These two are like new contestants in Eurovision. Now, of course, you've got Palace, who have getting a bit of taste of Europe this year in the Conference League. But when I say this, I'm talking about teams that can push to challenge maybe for the Champions League or play or make that Euros, what's the word I'm looking for here? Europa League spot. And can I tell you, by the way, both of these teams so well coached and so exciting to watch, really. I love the way both of these teams play. I love the way Glasgow plays. I love the way other plays. And by the way, talking about Bournemouth, I feel like we talk about him every week. But Anto'Ns, like that game last week against Fulham on a Friday night. By the way, what were those kits that Fulham were? Those bright green kits? Anyway, Semenyo, 9 GA through 7 matches this season. 6 goals, 3 assists. Like, that is Erling Haaland level form. He is becoming a world-class talismanic player before our eyes. He's starting to receive the ball in the middle, drift left, drift right. He can score free kicks. He scores pens. Like, he just does it a variety of ways, and he's sort of like that best player that is outside of the top 6. I would almost say, like, Eze had that sort of crown, but now he's obviously. Oh, we have been yawning today. Crazy. Eze sort of had that role, but now Semenyo is sort of taking on that sort of burden. You can look at maybe a Morgan Rogers with Villa or a Watkins, maybe, but I don't think Watkins is at the level at Semenyo anymore. Not the same sort of production. Yeah, I mean, look, yeah, some of those Newcastle players like Tonali, Guimaraes, but I still think they're kind of like top 7, 8-ish. Maybe outside the top 8, he's clearly the best player outside of the top 8 from like top 8 best teams, not necessarily like overall traditionally on the average of the last few years. Okay, yeah. So both of these teams have been consistent. Throughout the whole year, they've been sticking around this type of like early parts of the table and challenging the big boys, getting results against the big boys. I think these two are here to stay. I think these are the best outside of, you're probably your top 5 challengers. And they could push those top 5 challengers. They could easily push Bournemouth and Palace, the next 2 teams that I'm bringing up here, which are not quite London's finest. Right. Chelsea and Spurs. Now, Chelsea have shot up the rankings here because what a win that was against Liverpool. And I kind of felt like as that game progressed, hey, first of all, what a world-class goal by Caicedo. Liverpool got their equalizer, but still I kind of felt like as the game progressed, as we got closer, I felt like Chelsea was the more likely to win, and eventually they went ahead, they got that goal. They were rewarded for their bravery. Let's be honest. Like, a lot of the narrative was during that game, which was like, oh no, 7 minutes of injury time. here we go again. Liverpool are going to get their last minute goal. But I'm like, nah. 7 minutes benefits Chelsea more here. Chelsea's the team who looks like they're carrying a threat, who looks like they could use the extra amount of time so they can chase that winner. And they did. Willian Estevao, fantastic winning goal. They deserve that. That was against one of the title challengers. That is a boost. Schedule got harder, and they won it. That's a boost. But they're not quite London's finest, and you will know why soon enough. And Tottenham Hotspur, again, I wasn't fully convinced with their win against Leeds. It was a bit of a tough game, as I sort of imagined it would be. But they did better than I thought. They got back to winning ways. I sent out that warning shot on last week's version of the tiers. And again, I think Tottenham is incredibly talented. I think Tottenham has the ability to be very consistent. Up this week for Spurs against Villa. That's going to be an interesting game at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Two teams who are really trying to find some form. I think Villa, they're starting to catch Villa, I think, a bit about a worse time, because I think Villa's starting to gain some bit of momentum. So it should be a really, really fun watch. But anyway, up next, former champions. Yes, this sounds like a bit of an insult for me. Because obviously, Liverpool, the defending champions now, City, won 4 in a row previously to that. But lurking amongst them is the team at the top of the tiers. And they've just somewhere around there, kind of just trying to learning that ability to what it takes, that winning formula, having to take the bumps along the way. And I think that team is ready. And that team is Arsenal. But back to the former champions just a second before I talk to you about Arsenal. I just think that at the moment, I just kind of have to bring Arsenal in here so we can have a three-way chat here. At the moment, I just feel like Liverpool and City have got holes that Arsenal do not have. Liverpool's play has been poor. It's been poor. They've conceded 9 goals so far in the league. Compare that to Arsenal, who have conceded 3 goals so far in the league. Liverpool have not yet won by more than a 1-goal margin. Liverpool have now lost 2 in a row in the league, 3 in a row overall. A run that Arsenal has not yet to have or endure, maybe not have at all this season. City had a bit of a bad patch earlier as well. And again, City a bit up and down. They've had some great performances against Wolves early on this season, and then recently against Burnley. Oh my god! Again, those are teams that they should be destroying. And then they play Brentford, and I feel like it's very Erling Haaland dependent. I feel like as well, by the way, they're a little bit susceptible on the counter attack as well. That Tottenham game sticks to me in my mind. Arsenal, for me, have the deepest squad, the most consistent play, the best defense, comparable attack to those, comparable midfields to those teams. And I just feel like the squad depth is just the key here. Arsenal have had injuries. Odegaard is back out injured again, but no one is blinking. Arsenal's not blinking. Arsenal's chance now, with Liverpool and City playing tougher fixtures coming up. They actually play each other soon. This is an opportunity now for Arsenal, but before the next international break, we got 4 match weeks. If Arsenal can take points on all 4 match weeks, they can start to open up a bit of a gap. And that's the advantage that Arsenal got from it during the early schedule. And so I think again, this is another week. How many weeks in a row have we had it where Arsenal's top of the tiers? I think they are showing their consistency. And I know people go "Oh, you're an Arsenal fan. You're being very, very biased here." But look, as we said the other week, the bookies have Arsenal as the favorites. This is a conversation that's being spoken about more and more and more. Now the question will be, does Arsenal have the mentality to get it over the line, to be the top winners? When you get closer to the end of the season, and you need to win the games in order to close out that title, do Arsenal have the mental strength to pass those tests? That's something we can't really talk about yet for a while. But through 8 weeks, which is what the tiers are about, through 7 weeks, I guess, Arsenal have been easily the most consistent team in the league. So therefore, they are at the top of the tiers. Guys, let me know again what you guys think about the tiers. Would you switch anybody around? Do you think Arsenal's the best team? Do you think Liverpool or City should be the best team? Was I being disrespectful? I don't know. I'm just thinking with a couple weeks until we get to that 10-game mark, to that quarter of the season mark, the tiers are starting to shape up. They're starting to shape up in terms of maybe what this year's Premier League will be like in terms of who's good this year, who's average this year, who's bad this year. People are starting to feel into their roles. So let's see, because we're still kind of in that premature stage of the season, but we're starting to get there, starting to level out. Anyway, guys, I should remind you again to like and subscribe if you like this video. And if you like my content, there's another channel that I do, right? And that is Fire Them Cannons with, I don't know if I point to the right way. Sometimes maybe I'll just point this way as well. Because sometimes I point this way and I point this way. It looks different on my camera. Anyway, yeah, hit that subscribe button and that will take you to Fire Them Cannons page where you can subscribe. Hit the QR code. You can subscribe to Fire Them Cannons. Support me and my boy Cal. Support me as well on the Football Terrace, and hit this like on this video, guys, and I will see you guys on the next video. Anton out.